Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and welcome to the breaking news. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support us on Patreon, link in the description below. Today we have breaking news coming from every corner of the world, as we've been able to hear that the Ukrainian armed forces have destroyed a significant factory used in wartime production for the Russian Federation inside the Kursk Oblast, once again causing the Russian Federation to reel from the damage that has been caused to their war industries. Meanwhile, the Russian Federation attempted an attack against Ukrainian front lines today in the Belgorod Oblast, suffering 60 killed and 5 trucks destroyed. It appears that the attack was considered an absolutely resounding failure, as the Russian Federation was not able to break the Ukrainian lines and the entire attacking force was wiped out. We've also been able to hear that inside the area of Ivanovo, or the Ivanovo Oblast, the headquarters of the unit that was used to conduct the attack against the center of Sumy, leading to 40 civilians killed, was attacked today by the Ukrainian armed forces in turn, and significant damage was caused to the military facility and the surrounding forces that call the facility home. We've also been able to hear outside the Middle East that the Islamic Republic of Iran is now stating that they will not be negotiating with the United States over Iran's ability to be able to enrich uranium to a weapons grade, meaning that at this point, any negotiation or deal that the United States would make would be absolutely so weak that it would really not stop the Iranians from making a nuclear weapon, but it would give the false sense of security that they might not create a nuclear weapon. We have also been able to hear from the IAEA that they are now stating that the Iranians are only weeks away from producing a nuclear weapon, and it may be ready to field in months. And we've also been able to hear that the Yemenis are now requesting the United States and other Gulf states join them in an offensive to finally drive the Houthis out and to once again take control of the state of Yemen away from the Iranian proxy force, which has reigned hell over the country for nearly 11 years. Meanwhile, outside of that and inside of East Asia, we've been able to hear that the People's Republic of China today has called the U.S. citizenry peasants, as a 245% tariff was implemented on them. Who is the peasant now? We have also been able to hear in the area of the Scarborough Shoal that the Chinese Coast Guard is continuing to harass Filipino vessels that are attempting to transit the area involved in economic activities. It's the United States of America is now saying that we may cut the Chinese off completely from being able to trade with the United States indefinitely, even through third-party intermediary nations such as the European Union or any others. There has been a significant amount of news to cover today, and moving on into our most significant news inside of the Kursk Oblast, we have been able to hear that the Ukrainian armed forces were able to successfully hit and destroy a ball bearing factory APC-20, inside of the city of Kursk. The ball bearings factories are an incredibly important ability for the Russian Federation and any nation to have, and are considered a national strategic asset. Ball bearings are incredibly important in most vehicular functions or anything that largely has a mechanical moving feature to it. Ball bearings have been used significantly by the Russian Federation in the terms of the Air Force, the ground forces, and the Navy over the course of the war. The fact that we are seeing that one of the larger ball bearing plants in the Russian Federation is on fire and appears to be burning to the ground in a significant blaze is once again suggesting that the Russian Federation's wartime industry is taking a significant hit. The ability to have tooling and machining that can produce precision ball bearings is something that is very expensive and is usually only justified by an economy of scale. The fact that the Russian Federation is now seeing that one of their more significant ball bearings factories inside of Kursk is now burning to the ground will most likely be leading us to believe that the Russian Federation will be weeping over the loss of this ball bearings plant, because it's one of the few in the Russian Federation that can actually produce precision ball bearings for them to use in wartime manufacturing. We have also been able to see the major fire in several videos, such as this one right here, and also this additional video right here, once again showing the fire from a greater distance and showing the absolute toxic plume of thick black smoke coming from the ball bearings factory as it continues to ball its bearings. We've also been able to see one other additional clip. It's a fairly lengthy one, once again showing the fire and the absolute scale of it as it continues to consume the confines of the ball bearings factory. The Russians had been absolutely shocked by the damage that had been caused to the factory, and they said that right now it's so bad they can't even really get a bearing on it. But they're about to get on the ball soon, and once they get on the ball, they'll have some bearings on the situation and how bad the damage is. Nevertheless, it does appear that the Russian Federation will be losing a significant asset for wartime production into the foreseeable future. While they are losing a significant asset of wartime production, they are also losing a significant amount of manpower less than about 100 miles away from the city of Kursk inside of Belgorod. The Russian Federation has been attempting to push the Ukrainians out of their small holdings that they have in the Belgorod Oblast, as the Ukrainian armed forces have been able to lay claim to the small villages of Popovka, Demidovka, Grafovka, Prilise, and Lipsy for quite some time. The Russian Federation considers this to be a breach, the very same as the Kursk Oblast offensive that occurred during last year, and have attempted to conduct offensives to be able to drive the Ukrainians out and away from the area. We have seen that the Ukrainian armed forces met such an attack today, and were able to wipe out the entire attacking force, with nearly 60 conscripts being killed and 5 trucks used to bring them in being destroyed as well. The picture doesn't really show much, but it does show the burning debris of the trucks in the tree line that were used in the attempted attack to be able to try and push the Ukrainians out, but it appears that generally was a failure, and it appears that the Ukrainians will not be getting pushed out. It appears that they are going to be staying in, and if anything, the Ukrainians will only leave when they pull out. Nevertheless, the Russian Federation has emphasized that the Ukrainians have a very good hold on the region by this failed attack today, and it does appear that the Russian Federation will have to devote a significant amount of resources and firepower, much like they did in the Kursk Oblast, to even be able to pose a significant dent into the small area that's being controlled, or to actually push the Ukrainians entirely out of the region. Nevertheless, the Ukrainians at this point are tying up a large amount of Russian forces in Kursk and Belgorod with these offensives, and are continuing to ensure that the Russian Federation is not able to bring to bear its full military might and power inside of the areas of the eastern front of Ukraine, where their offensive power would be the most needed at this point, to be able to try and continue to further Russian offensive objectives, and to once again try and take the majority of the Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson oblasts under the control of the Russian Federation. Meanwhile, we have also been able to hear that the Ukrainians have conducted an act of vengeance today, and a very successful one at that. Many people will remember that just this last Sunday, the Russian Federation conducted an unsolicited and absolutely heinous attack against the citizens of the city of Sumy, killing nearly 40 of them as 2 ballistic missiles struck the city center in the middle of the afternoon rush, and it appears that a large amount of people were killed and wounded in the unfortunate massacre that resulted from that heinous and grievous attack. The Ukrainian armed forces have been able to figure out the exact unit that fired those missiles at the city of Sumy and their basing location in the town of Shuya, which is in the Ivanovo Oblast. The town of Shuya is not the largest and most significant town in Ivanovo, but there is a decent military facility that is housed within the center of the town of Shuya. It appears that the Ukrainian armed forces have considered this to be a top priority target, largely as an act of vengeance against the Russians, and were able to attack it successfully with the Lyuti long-range drones, hitting the facility and destroying a significant part of it, and also taking out a lot of the Russian units inside with it. Here's the clip. The first one had no audio, but the other ones will have audio.
Херачат, опять херачат.
You can hear the air defense fire.
Блядь!
You can hear the sound of a seagull, a very interesting noise. I once again want to remind all the viewers at home to hide your popcorn, as the seagulls may actually pluck it clean out of your hands.
Сука! Я чуть не родила! Ебать!
Well, you see the attack from another angle here.
Блять, он прям к нам!
And the attack was successful once more.
А, у меня мурашки, блядь!
Ой, блять! А вон там самолет, смотри!
You see the drone coming in now from another angle.
Да.
And there it
Нет,
comes.
в ту сторону.
And it's going in on its dive right there.
Ты чё, блядь, сбивай опять, ёб твою мать!
And here's another angle of it. And there's the dive. And it was a dead-on impact. As we can see, the Ukrainian armed forces were able to conduct a successful counterattack against the Russian unit that conducted the attack on Sumy, and it appears that many Russians were in absolute terror watching their military getting hit by a long-range drone in the middle of the city. I don't really think those people may understand that the terror that they're feeling watching the military get pounded at their tiny post inside the town of Shoya pales in comparison to the fear and terror that Ukrainian citizenry is feeling every single day when they themselves are the ones that are being targeted by the Russian Federation, and it's not them just happening to watch the Ukrainian military nearby being targeted in a counterattack. Nevertheless, it does appear that the attack was successful and that the Russian Federation will most likely be mourning the loss of a great deal of service members of that unit, as it appears that they will not be conducting any more missile actions in the future, and instead they got missiled straight into the grave by the Ukrainians. Moving on from that, though, and into some other news that we were able to get out of Moscow, while the whole heinous attack by the Russians and the righteous and heroic counterattack by the Ukrainians is ongoing right now, we have been able to see that Witkoff has apparently figured out what the negotiations are actually about, as the U.S. envoy to the Russian Federation, Steve Witkoff, says that he finally got Putin's demands for peace and the Russia-Ukraine talks. After a compelling and heartfelt 5-hour meeting, the deal emerging involving 5 territories, security protocols, and no NATO Article 5, plus potential for U.S.-Russian commercial partnerships. So basically what this is, it's the same thing that they've been talking about, and they still have not made any ground on it, and this is just a statement to pretend like they're making ground on it, but this doesn't really tell us exactly what the plan is or what the peace deal would look like in any way, shape, or form. The deal emerging involves 5 territories, and those territories have been the same the whole time. It's Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Luhansk, and Crimea. There's nothing new there, nothing magical. Security protocols, which is speaking more so about peacekeepers and the Russian Federation's avowed belief that there should be no peacekeepers of any kind in Ukraine, whether they're a part of NATO or not, and also Ukraine cannot join NATO and get any Article 5 protections in the future whatsoever, and there's also probably some additional demands that the Ukrainians must demilitarize, Zelensky's government must be thrown out, and that the Russians be able to plan a puppet inside the Ukrainian government. Those are also some additional demands that the Russian Federation has endlessly made without ceasing. Also, a potential for U.S.-Russian commercial partnerships is honestly the weakest thing that I've ever heard. A U.S.-Russian commercial partnership would consist of just about nothing. The Russians have nothing that we need. They produce hardly anything beyond petroleum products. For that reason, I don't even know what in the world a commercial partnership with the Russians would produce that would bear any fruit. It would be an absolutely pointless financial venture. Nevertheless, it does appear that we are continuing to talk to the Russians, and the Russians are continuing to run circles around us as we continue to pretend like they're actually meaning what they're saying, and at the same time, they're not. We also did, by the way, extend the sanction against Russian vessels entering U.S. ports for an entire another year. Once again, showing us that we're kind of giving an idea that the Russians really don't want to play ball, but we're still going to pretend publicly like they do. If the United States had any respect, or the U.S. government had any respect for the view that a lot of people take of American citizens around the world, we would stop negotiations at this moment with the Russian Federation and get back to supporting Ukraine, because I do not like the idea, being an American myself, of the Russian Federation treating the United States like a party of fools. We generally should be viewed as a respectable country that has a good wit about us, and with a good wit in mind, we should be understanding that the Russian Federation is playing us for fools right now, and we should start to react accordingly by stopping talking to them and letting the Ukrainians get back to hammering them and pounding them until they actually have to get to the negotiating table, because they can no longer stand the significant economic and military damage that they are facing at the hands of the Ukrainian meat grinder. I think that would be a more better kind of a solution at this point than letting the Russians play us as clowns with each passing day. However, while we are hearing that the Russian Federation is playing the United States for clowns, it appears that the Islamic Republic of Iran is now doing the same. As yesterday, it was being stated that talks between the United States and Iran were very fruitful and were producing great strides in peace, and that they were going to finally be bringing peace to the Middle East, a very elusive thing that has been in the minds and hearts of Americans for decades. It appears that today the Islamic Republic of Iran came out and stated that in the exercises of peace, they will not be negotiating their ability to enrich uranium, specifically to a weapons grade. They stated that that is not up to negotiation with the United States, meaning that even if the United States makes a deal at this point with Iran, that deal would have to allow the Iranians to include that they can continue to enrich uranium, and not only that they'll be able to enrich uranium to a weapons grade without any kind of an attempt by the United States to stop them whatsoever, meaning that at any given moment in time, the Iranians would only be weeks away from producing a nuclear weapon, because they would have nuclear weapons grade enriched uranium ready to go at absolutely any given moment. which means that the talks with Iran are going absolutely nowhere. And instead of the United States actually denuclearizing the Iranians, we're largely allowing them to buy themselves time to keep working on that nuclear bomb that they're making in the background right now. And it is so obvious at this point that the Iranians are creating a nuclear weapon that the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, has stated that Iran is not far from producing a nuclear bomb and may only be weeks or months away from actually fielding one and becoming a nuclear power illegally in the world, and not only that, an incredibly dangerous nuclear power at that. It's quite obvious at this point that the United States cannot trust the Islamic Republic of Iran, and that talks should cease immediately. We should provide them with an ultimatum. Within the next week, they need to openly make steps to show that they are denuclearizing themselves in every single way. Iran will not be allowed to possess or research any kind of nuclear technologies indefinitely into the future, and if they are able to do that, then we will back off right now. However, they have a choice. They could either choose the easy way to do this, which is to denuclearize completely without further delay, or they can allow the United States of America to do it for them. And if we are to do that, I believe that the United States of America should go in and completely dismantle the Islamic Republic of Iran's government, and we should also ensure that the Iranians are no longer possessing the ability to research, develop, or use any form of nuclear technology, whether its means be peaceful or those of war. I believe that that should be the stance that the United States of America should take at this point, because right now at stake, we have millions of American lives in the balance. If the Islamic Republic of Iran creates and fields a nuclear weapon, that means that they will eventually create an intercontinental ballistic missile capable of reaching the United States just like North Korea did. And that means that on any given day, millions of Americans' lives will be at threat of being extinguished immediately, depending on the whim of Khamenei and the Iranian government. That is something that I believe the Iranians should not have the ability to do or put Americans in fear of, and for this reason, we should take strict military action against the Iranians if they are not willing to denuclearize completely within the shortest time frame possible. We have also been able to hear inside the area of the southern Middle East that there is the possibility of a ground operation, as Yemeni forces opposed to the Houthis, which is pretty much everyone but the Houthis, are in talks with the U.S. and Gulf Arab allies about the possible land offensive to oust the ousted militant group from the Red Sea coast, according to Bloomberg reports. This is something that we have spoken about greatly on this channel and advocated for, as direct ground action is really the only way to deal with the Houthis once and for all, and to make sure that they are not able to have an existing base structure to build up from once again. This is something that the Yemenis are now requesting, and it appears that it may be given some sort of attention by the Saudis and maybe the United States, although I do believe that that would be the strongest and best action for the United States to take. It would swiftly end the Houthi situation once and for all, and we would not have to return to it because the Houthis would quite simply cease to exist on the ground, and most likely ideologically as well. Moving on from that, though, and out of the Middle East, we have also been able to hear of the ongoing trade war in between the People's Republic of China and the United States of America. We've actually been able to hear that the Chinese are starting to say some very interesting things today about the good old US of A, and it appears that a specific Chinese representative spoke about the US situation with Hong Kong. And here's the clip, and the subtitles are below.
美国最大的贸易顺差地，但美国依然对香港如此加征关税，简直是蛮横霸道、无耻之极。这让世人更加看清，美国见不得香港好，是破坏香港人权自由、法治秩序和繁荣稳定的最大黑手。他不是要我们的税，而是要我们的命。美国一而再、再而三对香港进行遏制打压，换来的只能是其在香港的代理人的加速灭亡，最终必将反噬其自身，让美国那些乡巴佬们在中华民族5000年文明面前去哀鸣吧！是美国。
And as the end there came around, and this guy was calling the Americans country peasants, the country peasants imposed a 245% tariff on the People's Republic of China. So that means who's the country peasant now? Because if I remember correctly, the U.S. has a average median income of around $40,000 per household, and I believe the Chinese have an equivalent of about 10,000. Sounds more peasant-like to me, the Chinese do, than the United States. And I'd say that those towns out there in the countryside sure as hell look like peasant villages more than the United States. Our peasants are far more enlightened, cultured, and wealthier than Chinese peasants. So I have a feeling, I find myself, being an American, the statement by the Chinese that we are country peasants to be slightly offensive, especially coming from the Chinese, who are more country peasants than we are. Nevertheless, we have been able to hear that the People's Republic of China is apparently going to be continuing their little spat with the United States, but with less money in mind. While the trade war is going to be damaging both the United States and China simultaneously, it actually will be damaging the People's Republic of China more so than the United States. The People's Republic of China's primary trading partner is the United States. The United States' primary trading partners are the European Union, Canada, and Mexico, and China comes in a nice solid fourth. With that in mind, we won't really be facing all of the damage and repercussions that the People's Republic of China will be facing in this trade war, more so than they will be. So it appears that the People's Republic of China is getting a little bit militant over that reason, but nevertheless, with a mouth like that, I don't really think that they really have room to complain, and they should be saying thank you for having those tariffs implemented on them, because it will teach them who really is the country peasant, since they want to run their mouth like that. Beyond that, we have been able to hear that the United States is ensuring that the Chinese will be cut off for good, as the U.S. officials plan to use trade negotiations with more than 70 nations to ask them to disallow China to ship goods through their countries as a third-party intermediary and prevent Chinese firms from being located in their territories to avoid U.S. tariffs. It appears that the United States, based off of this idea, is not really looking to implement tariffs against their Western-aligned trading partners, such as the European Union, Canada, Mexico, and so on, but only against the People's Republic of China, and stopping those third-party intermediaries from shipping to the United States will be ensuring that the Chinese are relegated to an absolutely economic hell, which honestly at this point I really can't disagree with. The People's Republic of China is an enemy of the United States and has been for quite some time, and the aggressive kind of stance that we're taking against the People's Republic of China, while damaging in the short term, I believe may actually end up being beneficial in the long run. However, the same thing could not be said about U.S. actions against Canada, Mexico, and the European Union, which would be very damaging in the long run, considering that they are our largest trading partners, and the most amounts of economic wealth produced are created with those three economic trading partners alone. So for that reason, while I'm generally a fan of the United States imposing tariffs and largely conducting this trade war against the People's Republic of China at this point, especially because of their belligerent attitude, and not only that, the fact that they are an open enemy of the United States beyond that fact alone, it would not be the same to say that those tariffs could be applied to Canada, Mexico, and the European Union, and then turn out beneficially for us on the other hand. It actually would be the opposite. That actually would be damaging in the long run. However, we have seen that the People's Republic of China has continued to take out their frustration on the Philippines, as they have continued to harass Filipino fishing vessels near to the area of the Scarborough Shoal, which we can see right here.
09. This is China Coast Guard vessel 21612. China has indisputable sovereignty over the Hawaiian Islands and its adjacent waters. To avoid miscalculations, leave the area immediately and stay away from it. Over.
Moving on from that clip and on to the next one, we see the Chinese Coast Guard vessel up close. That's the end of that clip, but it is showing that once again the Chinese are taking aggressive actions against their surrounding neighbors, which includes Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, the Philippines, and Vietnam, and a whole bunch of others. Like, for example, India and Pakistan, and also Afghanistan. And I believe that Bhutan has also had some aggressive action levied against it as well. But beyond that whole side of things, the Chinese are friendly people. You know, it's a friendly country. They love folks. It's just that they don't love people that go against them. And for some reason, oddly enough, everyone's going against them for some reason. It's a little bit weird with that. But beyond that, it does appear that the People's Republic of China is going to be continuing to suffer from this trade war. And at this point, I don't really think that I can really complain about the America going too harsh on them, because it appears that they are going into absolute panic mode over it, and to be entirely honest, I don't really believe that this will be damaging long-term like other trade wars appeared that they were going to be, and quite obviously were going to be damaging long-term. But nevertheless, that is all of the news that we have at this point today. I have to thank each and every one of y'all so much once again for watching. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to cover this news for all of y'all. And if y'all have enjoyed, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support us on Patreon. The link is in the description below. I have to give a massive shout out to all the folks who are currently supporting us on Patreon right now, because those folks are helping to make this channel possible day in and day out, and help us to be able to cover this news so that all of y'all can hear what's going on each and every single given day. They help us to be able to do this as a full-time job, where we are able to make these short war videos and run nightly shows, and if it wasn't for those folks, none of this would be a reality. And so a massive thanks to them. And if you want to join those folks and be one of the people that are helping this channel to keep rolling, the link is in the description below to support us on Patreon right down there. Beyond that, I have to thank each and every one of y'all, whether y'all are supporting this channel or not, for watching. We are always honored to be y'all's primary source of news, and we will be seeing you all in the next one.